Hello everybody, my name is Daniel, and today we are going to be reacting to my old art all the way from the year 2009 to today. I thought this would be an interesting video to make, to kind of go back and look at my own artistic journey and progress, and going from doing this as a hobby to eventually wanting to pursue it as a career. And over the last couple of years, I have been working as a professional illustrator, doing work on games such as these ones here. And with that being said, let's get straight into it. And so we begin our journey in the mystical year of 2009, or maybe 2010, I'm not actually sure. But here is the first illustration that I have in my sketchbook. Can you guess what movie I was really obsessed with at the time? No, seriously. So what we have here appears to be the Joker saying, "Hit me," and then behind him is this weird Bean Batman crossover. I'm not sure what this is, about to hit him from behind. So there's that. And here's another one, another piece of the Joker, I guess a little bit more realistic. And I remember when I was drawing this, I had no idea how to draw Batman. So I literally just put two dead eyes over him and then just had a silhouette and called it a day. Also, I had this small Joker smiley face as my signature for ages. Everywhere I go, I would just sign that and I have no idea why. And you bet I was walking around my house being like, "Why so serious?" And like just constantly doing the Heath Ledger voice. It was so annoying.
I'm the Joker, baby.
Yeah, okay, here's another Joker. Yeah, that's it. I was also super obsessed with Alien and Predator. I mean, I still am. Like, I really do enjoy those movie designs. So we have a sketch of a Predator here. Here's one of an alien. Of course, had to draw them. And the thing is, it's like these same creatures and, you know, like characters I would draw all the time, all over my books in school. I'm sure like many of us, but right. Okay, so here's a sketch of Jack Sparrow with a little quote saying "savvy" at the bottom. Yeah, this is interesting because when I was drawing this one, you know how like you start with an eyeball and then you just render the entire eyeball and then move on to the rest of the face? That's definitely what I did here. You can see the the mismatch between the eyes. Yeah, don't, now that I've learned, draw both eyes at the same time, and then you'll have a much easier time drawing faces. And of course, we have to do Davy Jones as well. I mean, like, now that I'm looking at it, hat obviously way too small. But not gonna lie, I was actually really proud of this drawing. I was sort of like at the beginning of high school, and I was trying to draw just more in general. And this is something that I came up with. Also, I realized that I love writing quotes. And here's that same Joker signature, as if people are gonna know who the hell that is. And yeah, definitely writing, do you fear death?
I'll take my chances. To the depths.
Okay, all right. This one here, my brother called Smooth Tony when I drew this. Can you guess why it's called Smooth Tony? It's because I literally found a way to use the airbrush in graphite, right? So, I mean, yeah, to me, it kind of looks like Tony. I still have no idea where his ears are. But I mean, Iron Man was one of my favorite heroes back then. So yeah, there we go. Right, so we're skipping forward a little bit, and this is around 2012 in high school. This is the first digital painting I ever did, and this was just with a mouse in Adobe Flash. So I remember I had this multimedia class and we were all meant to be animating. And you know, the thing that I gravitated towards was that in Flash, if you click and dragged, it would create a line, but it would also taper it and it would look like it was hand drawn. So I really liked that. And at this point, I had no idea digital tablets were a thing. So I would go ahead and draw all sorts of different things. And this is the very first attempt at that. Still don't know how to draw hands, as you can see. This open hand, I have no idea what that is, but you know, for a first attempt, I don't think it was that bad. I mean, it's apparently Ezio dressed up as Altair, maybe a unlockable costume in Assassin's Creed, which I was super obsessed with at the time. Now, 2014 was interesting because it was the year I started university, and it was also the first time that I actually properly learned how to draw. So up till this point in high school, I didn't take any visual arts class. The only thing I was doing was music. But when I got to university, I remember this was one of my first assignments, which was just a still life. And yeah, starting to understand things like value and perspective and you know, texture and all those sorts of things. And so we have a bowl that looks like an almond, but you know, is a bowl. And yeah, that's the first time I tried shading properly, I guess. This one here I remember very fondly. So it was the very first time I'd ever heard about perspective. And I was sitting in class and my tutor was saying like, there's this thing called the horizon line and all the lines, that are parallel and converging go towards that line. And he told us to go out into the hall and just basically draw something using what we had learned. And it blew my mind just because I had no idea that math and drawing and art could kind of intersect, and there were rules for art. Up to that point, I found it very abstract, and I would just draw based off of like observation, looking at references and stuff. And this is the first time I started to realize like, oh, hang on a second. This is something that I can actually take and apply into my own art too. So this one here is my first attempt at 2-point perspective. Yeah, super into Star Wars. As you can see, like apparently this is set on Tatooine. We've got 2 suns here, and then just a TIE fighter flying in, and a giant building that says Death Sticks, because I mean, who doesn't want Death Sticks?
You wanna buy some Death Sticks?
If I had one piece of advice, don't hand in an assignment that is meant to be about drawing atmosphere as this. That's all I can say. Because my tutor, I remember, said, we were learning value control and atmospheric perspective and everything like that. And he goes, okay, I want you to draw something with atmosphere. And apparently this is what I came up with. So yeah, I mean, super edgy. Always watches, no eyes, don't look. Again, super obsessed with like writing quotes all over the place. And I remember like I used water and dropped it all over this page and then used a brush and smeared it. And I thought like, oh yeah, this will totally bring in the atmosphere. No, it didn't. It didn't. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Here's another attempt at drawing a face. So this is supposed to be Ellie from The Last of Us. Kind of like a chipmunk. I mean, like, I don't really know it looks like Ellie too much, but I was trying. And then I remember when I finished this, I was like, yeah, I don't like this at all. I'm going to redraw it. And so that's this. And this looks even less like Ellie to me. Very scraggly hair. I mean, I guess Ellie kind of does have scraggly hair, right? It's like the post-apocalypse or whatever. Here's more digital art from 2014. Yeah, let's kick some ice. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age! Here's another piece of Jon Snow that I was drawing. This is to my friend Linda. So hello, Linda. I hope you enjoyed this artwork. And yeah, this is one of the first times I remember actually using a Wacom tablet. So in my degree, I studied games art and design at uni. And so we were introduced to Photoshop and we were introduced to digital painting as well. And so this was basically me tracing over a photograph with all of the default, brushes and stuff. And then, of course, using the airbrush for everything else and rendering because I had no idea how to blend. But yeah, we had a lot of paintings like this one. I even had this one here of Walter White. It says tidy Walter Whiteys. Yeah, that's a shout out to Epic Rap Battle. Very, very old.
I'll be standing right here in my tidy Walter Whiteys!
And now we skip forward a year to 2015. So yeah, Boba Fett. Escaping the Sarlacc. And I guess I was just feeling particularly artsy that day just because I decided like, you know what? I'm going to try a style. I'm going to get the default round brush in Photoshop. I'm going to turn off opacity. I don't need to blend and I'm just going to do something with it. Yeah, Deadpool 2016. So yeah, you'll tend to notice that a lot of my earlier art has to be a lot of fan art, tons of fan art. In fact, I think for me, it was the reason that I got into art in the first place, to like draw my favorite characters all the time and sort of like appreciate all of the artistry that went into these movies. And it was until I started getting serious about art, later on down the track where I began to use those fundamental skills that I'd learnt over the years and try and do something new. But before then, like Deadpool, Deathstroke, Bane, Batman, constantly. Rorschach as well. That was another big one that I really loved. Tons of superhero stuff everywhere. If I had to like pick something that was the epitome of 2015 humor, this is it right here. And again, it's all traced from different photos and stuff. I drew this for a friend. And I just, we were both meme lords, so I just decided to throw all this stuff together. I mean, like, even seeing Shia LaBeouf again, like that, ooh, that's an old video, but, actually kind of weirdly motivating. Okay, now, this painting here was a huge turning point. I think this is like a jump up in quality for me at the time, and I don't even know how to describe it, basically, but one day I just sort of sat down and found this reference picture of a Deathclaw, and I wanted to combine it with something else and make it really moody and stuff. Because, in Fallout 4, everything's super bright. But I kind of fell into this flow state, and I painted this over 2 days, and it was like 9 hours on either day. And something just clicked with me with painting, where when I finished it, I realized like I could try and do this for a living. I could try and like put more time into this and take it more seriously. And so, yeah, this was definitely like a milestone painting for me. And I was super, super proud of how it turned out back in 2015. So in 2016, I remember painting this one, which is, I just named it Alien Planet Concept. And I think it was the first time that I tried to get more used to the idea of painting backgrounds and environments. You know, up to that point, I was just drawing a lot of my favorite characters and everything like that. But when I got to this stage, I realized like, let's try and create something new, you know, and you can see it's super, super rough, like very blurry. But these were the beginning stages of me learning how to do environments. You can even see this one here. This is like one of the first sketches I actually had of an environment. And, you know, from my classes, we would learn how to draw in perspective, but I never really knew how to apply that to organic stuff like forests and mountains and what have you. So this was kind of like practices of doing that. You can see super rough, but this was just exploration and trying things out basically. And now we have this pun series here that I have of a bunch of characters. We got BB-8, and we've also got the Brotherhood of Steel. Get it? Get it? Steel? Huh?
Okay.
And we've also got Count Sudoku, right? Because apparently that's what he does in his off time from being a Sith Lord. And my personal favorite, Darth Maul.
Bruh.
So at the time too, I was kind of experimenting with this style of characters here. Just really easy cartoons. And again, you know, guess what I was watching at the time? But we've got Jon Snow, and then we've got Oberyn Martell here. And we also have Arya Stark, who has arms that are super long. Right, okay, so now this one here, this took me all semester to paint. This was an assignment that I had in my second year of university, and I painted this and really tried to push myself with this artwork. And I remember I kind of like restarted 3 times just because I wasn't happy with how it was turning out. But this is another one of those like milestone paintings for me when I finished it up. And I felt like a bunch of stuff clicked with me. And, you know, obviously looking back now, like I can see like the perspective is weird, and, you know, how is the dragon's head being held up with 2 chains at the side? I have no idea. But the class was all about creating something for our portfolio, and it really pushed me hard to kind of get out of my comfort zone and try and paint something from imagination and using a whole bunch of references and stuff like that. Yeah, okay. This one here, we let's not talk about this. It's now in 2017, towards the end of the year, I actually had a study abroad session in Austria, in Salzburg. So I lived there for half a year, and a lot of the time there, I remember I was practicing environments like crazy. My teachers were working in the industry as well, and so again pushed us really hard to kind of experiment with color and shapes and tones and stuff. And this painting here was a kind of fantasy rendition that I never finished of a place called Hallstatt that I visited. And I love the way that the town itself was built into, you know, all of these rocks. So at this stage, I'm starting to feel more comfortable with fundamentals and color and stuff like that. And trying this really painterly aesthetic just because, you know, everything was, you know, that was kind of the art that caught my eye back then. And yeah, see, here's another example here of a study of Iceland. And the thing that was interesting about this one was, especially in 2017, I was copying references as studies and just sort of doing it one-to-one and a lot of observational stuff. So at the beginning of learning how to paint and everything like that, I think that's actually a good way of practicing, is sort of looking at a photo and trying to replicate it just to train your observational skills. But as time kind of goes on, you have to break away from this way of studying and sort of remix and change things up. And something that I've been doing lately is combining 2 different references together and trying to create something new. But at the time, specifically, I was doing a lot of this kind of training. So here's another example here. Dunkirk, super love the film. And yeah, at this stage, getting used to painting characters as well, and people and facial anatomy, and really trying to push that skill. Still super painterly, you know, getting those visual brushstrokes in. And again, all of this is just done in Photoshop. But I felt like, yeah, 2017 was definitely a year that I progressed a ton just because of how much I was painting in that year. And oh, here we go. So yeah, here's another environment practice. My good friend Brent suggested for me to do a whole bunch of these like 1-hour studies here. And I thought like 1 hour, that's not a lot of time at all. And it's not. But what it does is it kind of forces you to make decisions very quickly, to simplify things and get things going. So yeah, I mean, like all of these environment, you know, here, they're super rough. But I think I was definitely trying to practice getting lighting and a mood and texture and everything like that. And this one here in particular actually is kind of similar to my art style today. So before, all of this stuff was very painterly, and I had a lot of brushstrokes and stuff. But in this one, it felt more graphic, and that's kind of the way that I like to paint today. And it was because of these 1 hour studies that I realized the benefit in being able to kind of simplify things and reduce complex details and not actually have to spend time going in and painting in all of the tiny details and stuff. You don't actually have to do any of that. Oh yeah. Here's one. This was like a personal piece that I did outside of uni, and I called this piece Under the Night Sky just because at my university on campus, like we have they're Australian, they're like these small animals called quenders, and they're kind of like, I don't know if they're rats necessarily, but they're kind of like rodent-esque, and sometimes you'll see them just like running across on the floor and stuff, and I always thought it was really cute. So I did this painting to kind of show my interpretation of what they get up to when everybody goes home, and trying my best to kind of create like a story element here, and trying to paint, something again from imagination and testing out those design skills really. But yeah, I mean, I think we can all kind of relate to this one right here, right?
Look at this dude.
Okay, so we have another concept here, and this is the first time I ever tried overpainting in 3D. So I made this sci-fi station in Blender, which I will show you right here. So this was the raw render that I had, and then just painted over it. And I remember I hated this painting, hated it. Like, just the process of trying to figure out how to overpaint and what to overpaint and everything was super frustrating for me. And I kind of look at it and it's like, it's okay. Like there's nothing really special about this image, but sometimes when you paint, like you gain frustration out of something, and it's not even necessarily how the painting looks at the end, but it's what you gain from it as an artist, right? And I think sometimes, it's not always going to feel fun. And in fact, art can feel very stressful most of the time. But as long as you're sort of recognizing and realizing that you're, at least trying to attempt something, and especially if it's something you've never done before as well, letting go of the expectation to nail it and be perfect on the first try. And I think definitely with, things like social media can kind of exacerbate that and make it a bit worse. But really the process takes a long time, and it takes a lot of, hours obviously in practice and trying things out. But yeah, use that frustration to your advantage, and know that if it's because you're frustrated with something, there's likely something you're not really understanding, and you can kind of use that as information to help guide you and make the next paintings better. So in the following year, 2018, I'd returned back to Australia and starting to feel pretty comfortable with environment stuff now, and starting to come up with original concepts. I was working on this project with a friend at the time, and we were coming up with all of these different landscapes and stuff, and we had this idea of like a bunch of adventurers going to an island and kind of settling there, and just something like a project to get the creative juices flowing, basically. So this one here was a character called Elian, who was like this mage wizard dude, and he had this observatory and stuff. And so this is kind of like my interpretation of it. And at the time, I was really influenced by this artist called G Liulian from ArtStation, who does incredible landscape stuff. So I was definitely studying his work and trying to figure out how he uses lighting and color and stuff. And like, obviously there's like issues with the perspective here. Like this path should kind of be converging a bit more as it gets in the distance. But I think at this stage, I was trying to really explore things and try things out. And again, back at university, it's interesting because at this point I had made the decision at the probably I want to say midway of 2017, like to really focus and hone in on illustration. Up to that point, I was doing a lot of things like 3D modeling and animation, and I also had another degree I was doing at the same time with music production and sound as well, completely different. But I wanted to keep that, that element alive because I'd always been playing music, since I was about 12, so I wanted to combine the two together. Anyway, during 2017, when I made the conscious decision to really focus in on illustration, that's probably when I saw the most amount of growth for myself, just because of all the fundamentals I had learnt in class and, all the practice sessions and studies and everything, starting to actually use them now and create stuff with it. And that was the big theme for this year. So I had that one, and then I even came up with this one here, which was just sort of like combining these different places that I had drawn and showing like, what they look like in this small town, this map. And again, super inspired by the work of G Liulian. I definitely recommend to check him out. I'll put his ArtStation link in the description down below. Now, during that same year, we move into the more concepty stuff. And again, can you guess what game I was playing at the time? But yeah, God of War, really struck me and really resonated with me. And I was just super obsessed with like Viking and Norse mythology stuff, as I'm sure like, many of us were at the time when it released. But I wanted to show this one because, again, this is like sort of another milestone painting for me. And it was interesting because this is another 3D overpaint, right? So this was also in, I think I did this in Maya or maybe 3ds Max. I don't remember what software, but this is what I came up with. So like I downloaded the skull on like a free 3D website. I'd made the helmet, set up the lighting and stuff, and really tried to push myself to create something in the vein of God of War, which led to this. So going back to that 3D overpaint before of that sci-fi train station, kind of have to just get those out of the way and keep going with it and keep learning and just trying stuff out basically. But I remember also something that really helped me out was I would only learn so much at university, but at home was when a lot of the progress happened. So at the time, I think I can't remember the artist's name, but I enrolled in, it must have been a schoolism course or a Skillshare course or something, where he was using a mixture of like photo bashing and painting and overpainting, and that stuff really started to help me out and make things click even more for me. Oh, and yeah, we just got a nice painting of my dog, which it does not look like this. Like I look at this and I realize like his head is way too big. So something that I found particularly fun to do as well was paint stuff from life, but using digital stuff. So it's I primarily work a lot in digital painting, and I actually don't have too much experience in traditional, which is something that I'm trying to incorporate more in my schedule. But yeah, I had this Big Daddy pop vinyl from Bioshock. By the way, keep an eye out for a Bioshock art analysis coming up soon on the channel. But yeah, just painting stuff from life is a really good way to improve as well, because the artistic decisions made in a photograph or just on reference photos and on the internet, for instance, they're already made. So when you paint something from life, you're starting to get in control of creative decisions to, make everything come to life. And I definitely recommend doing this kind of study in your own schedules as well. Here is a random ice cavern that I was painting, and just trying to push stuff from imagination and trying to create, something new. And I guess super inspired by Game of Thrones. So yeah, a lot of the stuff is, again, God of War, Game of Thrones, a lot of that heavy, Dungeons and Dragons fantasy element was really starting to pop up in my work at the time. Right, okay, so now we're starting to get juicy. In 2019, this is the first city I ever attempted painting. So you'll notice up to this point, a lot of it was organic landscapes, things like fantasy environments and trees and forests and mountains and all that sort of stuff. But Into the Spider-Verse came out, super inspired by it. And again, I do a lot of fan art of movies and TV that I enjoy. So I wanted to kind of create this image of Miles and Gwen swinging through the city, but add like more of a lo-fi twist to it. And I really like the use of purple in the film, and it's a color that I actually didn't really use a lot before, which is, something that ended up becoming, I guess, one of my staples. Is I love using the color purple in my work now. So when I sat down to actually paint this, I just remember like, how am I going to approach painting a city? Like there's so much detail in windows, and how do I balance buildings versus like the subject matter and all that kind of stuff. So I think I spent 2 weeks kind of trying out different things in Photoshop and trying to find the easiest way of getting everything in perspective. And I think it turned out pretty good. As I would go on and explore this kind of art style, I would find a lot of extra details and a lot more knowledge to push these images back then. Yeah, this is like the first cityscape that I ever painted. It is interesting though, because this image here was from 2019 and this one here is from 2021. So I actually revisited this painting a couple of years later, and just not changing too much, but with what I'd learnt from illustration and making clear focal points and values and everything like that, I kind of decided to go back and add these things that I had learned and enhance the image. And yeah, I think it's fun kind of doing that, because when you revisit an old painting and you go back and add stuff in your current skill set, you get to kind of see how far you've come as an artist, which I think is, very motivating as well. Right. So in that same year, like you can see how alternating my art style was. I didn't necessarily consciously think about it. I would just kind of paint based off of like, a mixture of my references and try a lot of different things out. But this piece here was influenced by Destiny 2, actually. Like, never played the game, but I found this video on YouTube showing this like Easter egg of this colossal monster kind of going through the waves and behind this big piece of glass. So I'm super fascinated by the ocean and super afraid of it at the same time, like thalassophobia and all that sort of stuff. And so I had this idea of this colossal ancient giant squid that was sort of put in captivity, and all these people were looking at it and taking photos and stuff. And I guess maybe commentary on the way that we consume media. I have no idea. Like, I just thought it was a cool giant squid image to paint. But something that was interesting about this piece is, now that I look back at it, if we compare it to my earlier thumbnails, right, which were these ones, I like this a lot more. Like the actual obscurity, not being able to see the thing, and kind of feeling more of a sense of separation between that. So I've actually been thinking about potentially revisiting this painting again and trying to, instead of like overpainting it, painting it completely from scratch and just seeing like, where that goes. All right. So now we are in the year 2020, and if I had to pick a year that was more influential on my art, it has to be 2020, just because of the amount of, just the amount of change that I went through as a person, and especially at the start of the pandemic as well. And this piece here was actually inspired by a trip I had to San Francisco the year prior in 2019. So I forgot to mention, but in 2019, I attended GDC with a friend, and it was a really great experience. Like, I got to go there and meet all of these people that were working in the industry, even a couple of developers that worked on God of War. But when I came back, I just realized, like, dude, I'm not ready for this. Like, honestly speaking, my portfolio and stuff, I just was applying it for a whole bunch of jobs at the time and just not hearing back from anything or anybody. And I decided to just really focus in on myself in that year. And if I'm being honest, kind of went through like a mini existential crisis where I wasn't sure, what kind of direction that I was going through, because I'd also just graduated from university. And I think that it's probably common for a lot of students to go through. But once you're done with it and your schedule changes, you're kind of like, what now? And at the time, when everything was going on and, isolation and all that sort of stuff, I did this painting here because it was based off of a photo that I took. But I found it weirdly comforting, because here we have this sign that says tsunami, danger, but then like evacuation route, and something sort of like pointing towards safety. So from that Spider-Verse painting I had from the year prior, I adopted a lot of those purples and lo-fi tones, and started getting influenced by a lot of lo-fi music as well, just on YouTube, and created art like this. And this is where we see a lot of the origin of the graphic nature of my work now. So yeah, this piece here was based off of Powell Street in San Francisco, and it's the same street that I stayed at when I visited San Francisco. So I wanted to try out this like 1950s graphic style, and at this point I was really influenced by artists like Patrick O'Keefe, Rob RuPaul, Alberto Mielgo, all those kinds of guys. And particularly with Rob RuPaul, I had read Graphic LA, and I picked up a couple of techniques from that, which was visual noise, or this aspect of visual noise. So basically what Rob says is that like complex details and stuff don't actually have to be complex. They just have to look complex. And what he meant by that was this busy street scene, if we zoom in all the way here, apart from the pixels, like it's literally just shapes. And when I saw that in his work, it kind of, again, blew my mind. I realized, hold on a second, could I do that? So this study here was primarily trying to focus on creating that element, and again, simplifying those complex details into simple shapes and colors and stuff like that, which I found very, very powerful. Now, again, this is also 2020. Again, you'll start to see like very alternating art styles, and I was sort of, when I was painting, it wasn't like one and then the other. Like most of the time I would sort of switch between art styles, but you'll start to see me lean more towards the graphic stuff as the year continued. But here's another piece from Red Dead Redemption. You can bet another huge influence on me, like that game, probably one of my favorite games of all time. And when photo mode came out for PC, I would just go around everywhere, take pictures of everything and then try and paint it and use the game as studies. And yeah, this was interesting because up to this point, I never actually thought about using video games as studies, but it makes sense because like we do film studies, we do cinematography. Why not with video games? Like video games look good. And there's things that we can do to kind of learn from that. And picking that stylization, but realism of lighting and how they do certain stuff. And yeah, I was definitely doing a lot of paintings here, and I had the idea at the beginning of the year to do a 15-hour painting every weekend for the entire year, and I only got through 4 of them before I just completely gave up and quit. But some of them here, you'll see, like I have this other one, this River Valley, which again, very purple. Purple ended up becoming my favorite color in this year. But also very impressionist and very loose and not so much graphic. Yeah, and so we can see, here's another one, A Crazy Run. I actually do have a time-lapse of this on my channel. And yeah, super obsessed with Red Dead Redemption, what can I say?
Yeah, that's all right there, boy.
All right, so now this is 2020/2021, and yeah, huge difference, massive difference from all the stuff I was doing before. I also do have another video specifically explaining this series here, which is called Within Our Thoughts. So the idea behind this one is just that, again, during COVID and everything like that, I wanted to paint a series of illustrations. Number one, primarily focusing on cityscapes. That was something I really wanted to improve at, just because it meant complex detail and simplifying it. And I was really obsessed with capturing that. And number two, just trying to tell a story and be a little bit more personal with my art. So each of these illustrations are actually a metaphor, or just some kind of something that was going on in my life at the time. If the audience didn't understand what it was symbolically, it didn't really matter, because I still wanted to try and create something visually appealing. And the first one, Alone But Not Lonely, which was this one here, that was so much struggle. Like it's all finished now, but again, the reason I'm showing all of this is not to underestimate or undercut the amount of anxiety I was going through, and a lot of self-doubt, and trying to figure out like how to actually do all of this. And a lot of these pieces took a really long time. Like for one of these illustrations, it was probably close to about 30 hours, including researching and reference gathering, mood boards, writing it out, thumbnailing, all of that stuff. But as I got more comfortable with the process, I started to find, I guess, anchor points within myself. Basically meaning that I knew the art that I was creating, and I knew myself a little bit better and my own process, and I could kind of like replicate that again and again. And the thing that I found with cities is that it can be very repetitive and time consuming, especially with just like the amount of windows you have to do. So I actually made a Gumroad pack for Photoshop that has 30 different custom shapes created by me, and they are all different things like windows and cornices and water towers and stuff like that. So if you are curious, I'll put a link in the description down below and you can check it out. But basically what you would do is you would get the custom shape, click and drag, and then have it flat, and then just sort of like warp it in perspective and paint from there. And that was a technique that I used and learned to use throughout this entire series here. And 2020 was also a really big year for me, because it was the year that I actually started to get work as an illustrator. And this one here, I'm super, super happy and proud of still to be a part of, is this marketing illustration for Lens Island. So yeah, it was the first time that, I'd started to get a little bit of commission work at the time, but this was like the first big break into like the games industry. And I was really, really happy with how this one turned out, and kind of using everything that I'd learned up to that point, kind of a mixture of the experience that I had painting, forest and stuff, but now with the new graphic sort of style, I kind of blended everything together and was really starting to find my own voice as an artist. And so it's interesting thinking about how much work you put into it, but also how subconscious it sort of ends up being. When I was looking for my style, I was doing a lot of different art styles and studies in different styles, but it never really came to me consciously. Like it sort of happened over time and became a mix of all of my influences together. But when I did this one, it was the first big, challenging project that I was a part of to try and get this concept to final illustration. So yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, I totally forgot to mention this one. This one's back in 2019, sort of when I was still in university. This is Wyatt. if you didn't know, Wyatt is my my little robot mascot. He appears like in my YouTube intro and is my profile picture and stuff. And this is how he was born. So at the time, still working on that games project about the adventurers on the island and stuff. I made a character called Adson, who was like this swashbuckling Nathan Drake kind of character, and gave him a robot sidekick apparently. So started off from these little robot designs, and you start to see this one here became what Wyatt would become. Okay, now we're moving on to 2022, and during this year I had a whole bunch of health issues, so I didn't paint as much, but I was still able to kind of draw when I could. So I had all of these portraits and character practices here of just different people. Like we've got Mark Rubier, and then we've got Mike Chandler, and like a bunch of other people. That I was practicing and doing a lot of kind of stylized drawings like that as well. Of course, we got to have Jinx and Victor. Oh, and then by the way, of course, we have to have a drawing of Gus Fring from Breaking Bad in a very pivotal moment, and I just decided to draw him as a mole rat. Apparently, here's another one I did last year. So this was I was in a Discord call with a couple of friends. And for some reason, we started talking about Palpatine being on Tinder. So I drew this lovely Palpatine here holding a fish, and then one of my other friends wrote this beautiful bio of Palpatine. So, but I think I was going through a weird phase of drawing characters as like e-boys, because we've got Pennywise over here biting his lip with a cross earring. So yeah, he's definitely found the TikTok. And then apparently also we have Christopher Walken as an E-boy. I guess this one here we had learnt that Christopher Walken was going to be playing the Emperor in Dune 2, so this also came from another Discord call. And we were just really obsessed with him saying, spice. And so that brings us to this year, 2023. And here's the kind of stuff I'm doing now. So I felt a lot more settled in myself as an artist and sort of going through everything that I was exploring with, university and all of this, and settling on this lo-fi, cityscape sort of artwork. So yeah, it's just a painting of Perth, which is where I'm from. Yeah, and there's a time-lapse of this also on the channel with my interview with Rob Ruppel from Intergalactic. And this year in particular, I'm starting to incorporate a lot more character stuff in my work, and using that portrait practice that I did a lot of last year and trying to bring them into my illustration style. So trying to draw, this is one from The Last of Us, and having that graphic background, but also with the characters. And it's been a lot of fun trying to figure out how to do all this stuff. And again, super challenging, not easy, especially with Ellie's face. As you can see that I drew many, many years ago, and I still had trouble with this year. Like this, this kind of reminds me of Peak from Attack on Titan, just the face. But you'll start to, I guess what I'm trying to say is that art takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of patience. And sometimes, again, when we're getting super frustrated, is easy just take a step back, reevaluate, and see what we're trying to accomplish, and kind of, reframe the mind. I found, at least for me personally, usually gives me a lot of success in just not even necessarily creating like an amazing finished piece of artwork, but just sort of getting through that hurdle and overcoming that challenge. And we also do have this one here. So here's a little sneak preview for you, because the next video I'll be making is my art analysis of BioShock. And here is the end painting that I did, sort of a demo, incorporating all of the different aspects of Art Deco and underwater and Rapture and all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned for that one as well. All right, anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of this video. And, I hope this one helped you out, as always. It's interesting taking a look back and seeing the entire journey of your art. And I would definitely recommend just keep your old art. Don't throw stuff away. Have a look back and see how far that you've come, because sometimes it's easy to forget, as we sort of progress with our art journey, and it feels like we're never really progressing. But usually what tends to happen is that our skill level increases, and so does the challenge of the things that we're creating. So it kind of never feels like you are improving, but when you take a step back again and just sort of evaluate everything, you'll be surprised with how far that you've come. So until next time, everybody, take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.